In this video, I'm going to review the short answer question type that asks students to make a comparison and to use causation. And wanting to keep this video as short as possible, you'll need to pause it periodically to stop and read the actual questions and listen to the explanations. So first of all, we're going to look at the skills that this particular type of question tests. If you look at this question, you will notice very quickly that there is no passage and there are no pieces of artwork from which to glean information. You're expected to be able to answer the question just from information in your minds. And the skills that are being asked of you are causation, comparison, making an argument, and using evidence. This is the actual curriculum framework alignment for this particular question, just wanting to show that to you so that you could see that this question is actually from the AP curriculum and has to do with patterns of exchange markets and enterprise developing over time. If I were a reader on this particular question, this is the actual rubric that I would be given to grade the exams. And notice that the part A, we have lots of information to show similarity between the colonies in the Chesapeake and New England. Then part B is where you would be talking about the differences and lots of information you could call from to create that differences. This is a continuation of those differences. And then on the part C, you will see the factors or what caused these two places to become so different, the causation skill. And one of the things I want to remind students sometimes that is difficult when you're taking a time test and you tend to get in a hurry, you might forget to say that in part C, it does ask us to refer back to part B, explain one factor accounting for the difference in part B. So be sure you're reading carefully and you don't miss those particular things and get off topic. So let's look at some samples of the answers, and again, these are from the AP Central website. This is a score of 3, a perfect score, where the student achieved all 3 points. If you look at that, you will see in part A that the person earned the first point for explaining how the differences, one of the similarities between the Chesapeake and New England is they were both from the British colonies. But the student did go a little farther than just making a simple statement of that. Then the student went on to talk about both colonies being under British law, being enforced in both regions. And so because the student went a little farther with the point, the student earned the 1 point. If the student, however, would have just stopped and said, well, they're both under British monarchy, that really would not have been enough detail. So one of the things that we encourage students to do is to explain enough on these short answer questions. Just be sure that you give enough information, you go a little farther with your point, provide an example or support for what you're saying. Part B, the student received the 1 point for explaining the differences. And for me, this was the strongest part of the student's actual answer. You'll see starting there on line 3 with one of the key differences. The student goes into good detail and talks about the differences in climate and soil, and also in how these differences led to different types of industry and trade. Then part C, the student received the point for causation because the student talked about how the geography, rich soil and climate, produced the differences or caused the differences in the two economies. This is our second example. This student earned a score of 2, and you can see that this student carefully places the letters ABC in the answer so that we can quickly understand and see where the answers are, and that's nice. Part A, the student did not receive any points because the student didn't identify a similarity that goes beyond and provides enough detail. The student says it's religion. However, the similarities in religion between the Chesapeake region and the New England area, they just don't exist. New England is more of a Puritan area. Chesapeake region would be more of an Anglican area, and that would not be a similarity. B, the student did achieve the 1 point explaining a difference. Even though there's only 2 sentences here, the student earns the point because the student talks about different economies and more industrialization in New England area and plantation system in the Chesapeake. Part C, the student earned 1 point for explaining the cause of the differences having to do with the climate and the land of the Chesapeake as being better for farming. This is the last response. This student earned a score of 1, and the student earned that score basically for Part A and being able to describe a similarity between the 2 regions. It talks about how both of the places were prone to disease. However, the student didn't give a lot of detail about that, and it would have strengthened the answer a bit to provide that detail. Part B, the student did not earn any points because there was no difference that was really explained well enough. The Chesapeake being more isolated than New England is not considered accurate because both regions were proximate to the ocean and could trade, so they really weren't any different as far as isolation. Part C, no points for that because the student did not earn the point for explaining the cause of the difference in Part B, that the student talks about how there is more ease in trade in New England. However, again, that was not accurate. So be careful in your different parts of your short answer to be careful to make sure that you're being accurate, that you're providing evidence, because sadly in this question, if you did not get an accurate statement in Part B, it did affect your score on Part C. And this is something we see a lot in American history responses, is that many of the themes and many of the actual questions will have an overlap of sorts. In summation, clearly answering the question, of course, is key. Support is important, and explaining is vital. Be sure that your responses are accurate and explain fully, and give that specific information in support of the view is also very important. Good luck on your exam.